The Virtual World Society. Join us in building better realities together.
Welcome, everyone, to another Virtual World Society's Fireside Chat with Tom Furness, who's the founder, co-founder of Virtual World Society. And we are so thrilled to have you join us here in Engage XR with a special guest, Paige Dansinger. Now, Tom is going to introduce her, but I just want to talk about Virtual World Society for just a moment. My name is Laurel Van Fossen. I am the director and co-founder of Educators in VR, and we have been producing this event since, I think, 2019, a long time.
Long time.
And we're very, very proud to continue to help bring Virtual World Society and some of the world's top leaders and innovators, the pioneers in the metaverse, in spatial, the spatial world, spatial design, spatial everything, as we're starting to switch the word, I guess, from metaverse to the spatial word. And we are back. This is, well, I haven't found what the right noun is. I'm hearing all these different words. It's a spatial design. No, it's not design. We're talking about where we are. It's a spatial world. Well, is it? I don't know. Anyway, the environment, spatial immersive environment. There we go. We are back. This is our first event in 2024, and we are so glad that you are here. Our next event will be in April, and we have an entire year's worth of amazing speakers that are lined up, as well as some fun adventures. So we're not just going to have some talking heads. We're going to have some more fun here. So get ready for that. Thank you again for joining us here in Engage VR. And this is Tom Furness. I'm going to turn it over to you, who is the founder of Virtual World Society and the genius behind so much of these innovations that we wear on our face and in our hearts. All right, Tom, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Laurel, and thanks for all that you do and for Educators in VR and helping us get into this space. Welcome, everyone. As we kick off 2024, we want to start with a bang, and that's why we have Paige with us today. Paige Dansinger is a force of nature and probably what I call a world treasure for what she has already contributed, and I can't wait for what unfolds from here on out. So many of you already know Paige, and probably it doesn't require any introduction, but let me just say a few words about Paige, and I don't want to embarrass her too much, but she is sort of a I guess you'd call her a Renaissance woman, and pulling all these pieces together. But you know that she is the founder of the Better World Museum. We'll probably be hearing more about these kind of things. The Horizon Art Museum and Women in Horizon. She's also a VR game developer, and especially in the Horizon MiniGame Accelerator Program, the Oculus Launch Pad Program. Her work focuses now on the integration and melding of not only the technology that we're experiencing today, but bringing that her art so that together there is an amazing social impact. Now, her physical location right now is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But, each of you guys have a place, a physical place you're in, but we're all together in this virtual place. And these virtual coordinates, that's in another dimension. So Paige, welcome. It's wonderful to have you with us today.
Tom, thank you so much. I am incredibly honored to share this space together with you, the founder, the grandfather of VR, the Virtual World Society. And thank you so much, Laurel, from the Educators in VR, for welcoming and introducing me today. I'm so touched to look out into our community gathering and see so many members of our family, our relatives, our collaborators, and our heroes here. So thank you.
Indeed. Well, Paige, let's start off with sort of at the beginning. As you counseled me, you didn't want to talk about yourself too much. You wanted to talk about where this was all going and some thoughts and actually some action items that you'd like to give to us as we go forth. But I'd like to dig down a little bit about what you were really like when you were growing up.
Thank you.
Were you an obnoxious kid or whatever?
No, actually, I remember sitting in my room alone a lot, drawing or painting. That's what I loved to do. Or I would design clothes for my dolls when I was very young. I had a really strong identity as a creator from the most early ages, and truly I have a memory of drawing a flower at a sleepover once, and to this day I am still drawing the same flowers and creating them in virtual reality.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well,
My
now,
mom said that I
yeah.
wasn't problematic, but I was
okay.
expansive and curious and felt most at home in museums and in gathering spaces like around a table.
Mm. Okay, well, let's fast forward a little bit. Now, I understand that as a background, what you were doing in your own room and with your imagination and your creative instincts. But what tell us about your first introduction to virtual reality?
My first introduction to virtual reality is when I was an invited guest to the Digital Media Center at the Met Museum. My good friend, rest in peace, Marco Cosmo Castro, who was leading the the Digital Media Lab at the time, founded by Don and Dean, had just installed a VR headset area. It was probably 2016-ish, 15, 16, inside of the center there at the museum, but it wasn't set up to work yet. And he said, "Oh, I'd love to show you this VR headset, but it's not working yet." But behind the scenes back at Better World Museum, which had been an established brick and mortar museum downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota, I was already working with collaborative community members, nonprofits, and creative tech community to use an iPad program that I had designed to import drawings into 3D space using Unity, and then using Google Cardboard to view it through YouTube. Some collaborators in those first initial projects was Hattie Ball, Seth Gibson, and the Domestic Abuse Project. From there, I moved immediately into working on a project with the new Palmyra organization led by Barry Through, where I was drawing destroyed archaeological world cultural heritage site of Palmyra, Syria, the 3rd century triple arches, and that were destroyed by ISIS in 2015. And I was reconstructing them using tilt brush, and then alongside of it was a community initiative that was creating a music sound list by sound artists on Twitter. So those were really my first projects with VR. My background is as a museum art historian. I had been working at the Minneapolis Institute of Arts for about 7.5 years before I had dedicated my life to creative technologies. Wow. And very soon was fascinated by immersive, first interactive and then immersive art.
So you put at one point in time, you put the headset on for the first time.
Yes. It was like,
what was that like for you?
Incredible. I was using the I was using Tilt Brush, and I literally just drew a simple flower and posted it on Twitter and Facebook, and I invited probably the same flower I remember as a little girl. Like, I can imagine my hand and brain can feel drawing it right now. And I posted it on Twitter with an invitation to anybody in the world to remix this VR garden. And someone had just walked in the museum that I knew, and I told him what I did. I was so excited about it, and he said, and I could like air quote him, he said, well, that was the dumbest thing you could have ever done. And I disagreed with him. I said, no, have trust. I have trust and faith in humanity. And this was really during a time of like the inauguration of the 45th president at that time, and there was a lot of division within the United States and the world, and I really felt as though it was important to trust and see what would happen. First, a person in Ireland drew in the VR garden, and then a person in California, and then a person in Asia, and a person in the Middle East. And before you knew it, Tom, there were over 200 people who was remixing the first iteration of the VR garden.
Wow.
That grew, the garden grew to encompass over 4,000 students, women, and community members throughout Asia Pacific and the United States. Primarily, when I had an opportunity to close the museum and take VR Garden as a pop-up traveling experience as a Meta Facebook Community Leadership Fellow in 2019.
Just think of that, with that little drawing you made and how you connected with hundreds of people just by that one little burst, and other bursts that came from those others who took what you built and built more, and the inspiration that provided for them. You know, Paige and I had, unfortunately, with just an hour or so yesterday, we were chatting a little bit about this fireside chat. And one of the things that she mentioned that I think it should be the theme of all of what we do is it only takes 30 seconds. It only takes 30 seconds. So tell us about that. How you experience, what you think about that 30 seconds.
Yes. Well, I literally see members in our community in this room who have impacted my life in less than 30 seconds by encouraging me, supporting, saying a good word, sharing a post, teaching me how to build or create or work on a team together. And in immersive technology, it's easy to share an empowering experience with somebody, a new friend, a member sitting next to you in the chair, right? It just takes, I think 30 seconds, it takes less than that. I think it takes literally like 3 seconds, Tom. But in the process of, like, you can put a controller in a student's hand and you have an opportunity in that moment. You can say, here you go, press the trigger and draw. Or you can say, this is a tool of empowerment and you have agency to control what you build and its impacts, right? So it's every moment is an opportunity, not only for education, but empowerment. And those lasting moments and exchanges that can only take sometimes 30 seconds can last not only a lifetime, but they can heal generations from our past and set the course for future.
Wow. That really makes me burn inside when you talk about that. And even yesterday, when you talked about just holding your hand out and being able to make something opens up a whole universe of capability that empowers that individual. Now you're a creator. Everybody can be a creator. And everybody can connect with that to others, as you did with your original flower. I think that's so powerful. And this whole idea of it only takes a few seconds. I remember when I put my headset on for the first time. Now, I'd been working on it for many, many years up to that point in time. But when I put on my first, what I call my Darth Vader helmet, which was 120-degree field of view by 80-degree field of view, all stereographic, 16-bit magnetic tracking system. I had about 10 computers surrounding me and 2 Evans Sullivan picture systems, one to draw the left eye and one to draw the right eye. And then we switched that on for the first time. This was in 1981. And this whole world expanded. And it wasn't like I was looking at a picture anymore. It was like I was in a place. And then what I could do in that place. And I realized we have tapped something that was always there and we hadn't been able to use with the media that we had up to this time. And you put it in those words that you spoke yesterday and now today. It only takes a few seconds for people to realize there's a whole world out there and a whole world of connecting and opportunity for creating. And you've done that. And let's talk about that a little bit. There's a lot of incredible stories that you have. I remember the 13-year-old. You remember the 13-year-old that was in an accident. Tell us that story. That's an amazing story.
Thank you. I've worked with a handful of 13-year-olds. And do you mean the 13-year-old young architect who built Better World Museum inside of Rec Room?
Well, that's the start, but there's another one that was in an accident, automobile accident. I don't know if it's a 13-year-old, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What happened with that?
Yes.
Tell us those stories.
Well, I can tell you about one young man named Edwin Ulola, who was a heart transplant patient. He was in the hospital for over 3 years when I had the opportunity to meet this young man. And I actually only, I did meet him on a Zoom call. But really, I met him inside of Meta Horizon Worlds, and we built some worlds together. When you're in like full-time hospital care, often you're in a room where you have invasive moments like nurses coming in like every 7 or 9 minutes. So we would kind of work in like a 9-minute bite. And like, what can one create in like 9 minutes, right? Often I have a class like building empowerment on Tuesday nights for women in Horizon, and it's always 90 minutes, right? Right? Or I can say to someone, I can teach you how to build a world in like 45 minutes. A good 45-minute session together in world will give someone some strong foundations, right? But we only had ever like a couple of 9-minute bites here and there ever together. But Edwin was a successful heart transplant recipient, and today now he's in a university program for 3D design. So really, we're talking about measures of time in like 30 seconds, 9 minutes, an infinite lifetime. But there's like something that happens within just that speed of light, right? And I believe the technology that you've created is that quantum leap between that speed of light and what happens in the heart.
Wow.
Right? It's like a sense of, I believe, I am, we are.
Wow.
And that happens in a breath.
I think we're done. I think this is a good place to end. She keeps doing this to me, where she comes up with these profound things that just burn me up in the inside. That good in a good way. But I really
Thank you,
story
Tom. I
about
love you so much. Thank you.
it is mutual. So the story that you mentioned yesterday about the people just happened into your museum. They were there
Oh,
waiting for their
yes.
car to be, yeah, or something. That story really touched me too. You need to share that to other folks here.
Okay, so another group of 13-year-olds, and I love working with youth of all ages as well
Mhm.
as adults and seniors. Don't get me wrong, but I have a sweet spot for like 13, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds, right? It's a
Mhm.
impressionable age, right? Where one good measure can change a trajectory. Okay, it was in the very beginning of the pandemic, and I was secretly learning how to build worlds in Meta Horizon as a pre-alpha creator, but I wasn't able to talk about that at all. So I got into Rec Room, which I had used previously as an education tool in Shenzhen and Beijing. And in Rec Room, I didn't really know how to build a world yet. I knew how to use the maker pen and do some cool things. So we used like a gymnasium template room, and I added some canvases and a maker pen, and hosted like in Rec Room you can have a pizza party, which is really adorable. So we had this pizza party, and it was a long night already. It was after 1 a.m. and I was getting ready to wind down, but 3 young, giggling people came, and they were disruptive, and they were wild, Tom. They were acting in a way that was testing me to see what I would do as an adult. And well, I'm just somebody who can work with a little bit of chaos. So I invited them to contribute, to have some pizza and contribute to the VR garden, which was the point of the evening. We were all like making a VR garden. And so they did. They started drawing, and they didn't do anything inappropriate. They literally drew and painted and created something to go in the VR garden. They were awesome. And I totally thanked them, and they thanked me. Before the end of the evening, I learned later that they actually felt sorry for me because I used this template world. They thought it was really sad, right? And it was, looking back on it, but I didn't know. And they asked if they could build a museum for me. They're like, "We like what you're doing. Can we build you a museum?" I said, "Yes, of course." And they asked, "Oh, well, what do you want it to be like?" And I just looked at them and I said, "I trust you. Build what you think it should be like." And I had a last piece of pizza, and I took off my headset, and that was it. I didn't think that I would ever hear from them again. But 3 days later, I got a message from them, telekinesis and Maddie and a DJ was their names at the time, and they wrote me and said that they finished the museum. And I went and saw it, and I was blown away by their design. They actually stayed up the whole 3 nights and worked on it together and became went from strangers to becoming complete best friends. And then I appointed them leadership roles. So there was telekinesis was the architect, and then Maddie became like a holotar educator, where those holatars for 30 seconds you could record a lesson. And so she would record these 30-second lessons, which was ideal for Maddie because it I don't know, it gave her like this sense of leadership and authority that I could tell that really resonated with her. And then telekinesis, he went on to be on a panel for the Immersive Futurist group on Facebook one of their days, and now he's in university in the UK as a like in 3D design as well. So these they also like it changed their life. So a young architect said that before there was, well, okay, I published a story about the world building in a local newspaper, and I sent it to them, and he said that was sort of like what changed his family relationship. All of a sudden they looked at him as though he had value. And it made him start to look at people in their eye and have a whole sense of self-value that was completely new. And their relationship grew into like this incredibly supportive space for his growth in technology, right? So what we do actually, it changes how we feel about ourselves, and that can impact our histories. We had an 11-year-old act as the artist in residence in the museum, and he created a whole exhibit about Earth Day, and it's rather moving. People don't think that 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds are they say they're leaders of the future, but they're truly leading today. They're leading right now. We just have to kind of get out of the way and encourage and support and treat them as valuable members leading now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's ask our audience a question here.
Okay.
Paige, just yeah, you have a question, Paige? I mean, one of the things that you just said of how this experience going into virtual space really became a change point, certainly for you and for others, and helped them realize that they had value. As what any of you have you had an experience like that was transformative as a result of the introduction of this whole new spatial computing, immersive computing, VR world?
All right. So how this works is that you can raise your hand, we can call on you, or you can just unmute and speak. And so somebody start. Share your transformative experience in VR. Bruce, I know you have plenty of them. Same with Kurt and Dan. I know all of you do. Somebody start.
And I really look out and I see people I've had transformative experiences with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Steph, I know you do. Oh, you got one? All right, Bruce, go for it.
Yep. Tom and Paige, just thanks a lot for kind of the far side. What's your view with Apple kind of turning
hold
kind
off
of
on
spatial?
Questions. You're being asked the question. Share a transformative experience. Yeah.
Okay.
Share a transformative experience.
Yep.
No asking questions. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm currently working with academics at universities to transform two-dimensional molecules into three-dimensional assets, so that we can use QR and AR codes, AR to kind of bring that to life, so that it brings kind of, especially when you're looking at stereochemistry, where kind of isomers and kind of things are slightly different, bring it to life. Because it's one thing that students are very stuck in the two-dimension and kind of the writing of things, and it's like how we can kind of move that forward to kind of actually immersion and people to be able to pick up and play, and software like Nanome is fantastic for that.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. So you're creating. All right, Ariana.
Ariane.
Hi. I can tell you that my initial moment of transformation in XR or virtual reality as a whole was actually being able to participate in an environment where individuals like Paige made it a safe space to like really learn about the resources and learn about the technology. And Horizon Worlds, I know a lot of people give Horizons and a lot of grief about being, very basic, but what it has done is afforded the ability to so many to have access to become creators, right? Like kind of Tom was saying early in his introduction, maybe somebody who never knew that they would have that ability all of a sudden has tools they can express themselves in these creative spaces and gather and meet people with no geographic borders, right? And have really unique experiences and feel presence. And it's just such a moving and powerful thing that it actually inspired me through my interactions with Paige to change industries and kind of set my world on fire. And like Tom said, it just makes me really burn in a good way. And it feels, besides the fact of being a mother and having these incredible children I'm raising who are very active in this environment as well, I have a very primal push to like help connect people and resources in this space and continue to make this a creator's world, because it truly is. And it's just such a powerful thing. So I think Women in Horizons and connecting with Paige and supporting others was always like a really important move for me. And I realized that was something that spoke to me, and I was able to make some big career changes later in life.
Fantastic. Thank you,
Yes, making those
Maybe we can do one more.
growths like accelerating constantly, right? Even
right, we see,
to the moon.
Is it? I can't tell if it's Linda or Ellen. It was Linda.
Me.
No,
It's
it's Linda.
me. Hi. Hi. I can't say transformative, Tom, because I don't talk in those words, but I've been waiting for a very long time to VR to get here so that I can make the things that I've had in my head forever. So the fact that I can make and explore and experiment worlds with environments that are not real, but they're in my head, has shown just how weird it is in my head. I blame the banana splits in the 60s, but I just love, I don't do it with other people. It's more about just for me, but I've been able to do things that I could never do in the real world, right? And create things that could never happen in the real world. So that's been incredibly freeing and incredibly addictive.
Thank you,
I
Linda.
love your sculptures in
I got so many
mixed
more
reality,
coming,
and
Paige.
I wish my home was full of them. So thank you for creating.
I got a lot more coming.
We'll look forward to that. Well, let's go on to some other questions back to Paige. Paige, we've talked about, and you've talked about over many years, the impact of this new world we're in now with these kinds of technologies. But what do you see really is the implications, the long-term implications of this? Not only the applications, but the impact. What do you see in your mind's eye and your heart? What do you see can happen as we are interacting with it?
Yeah, I really believe that what can happen, implications for the future, can look like a more inclusive and diverse, complete world, and restructuring the way our systems, like large systems change, restructuring. I also completely believe that we can create like cities and communities outside of our headsets that are reactive and responsive to our community members' needs through biometrics and interactive and soft architectures. Our entire world can actually become an immersive community space that is designed to empower members. For instance, imagine students drawing butterflies and tilt brush. those can be projected down buildings and become or there can be little like drawing, like karaoke booths, but like VR booths where people go inside and draw something that goes into the global community garden, and that goes up on buildings along your like seafront or the city infrastructure. But then when inclement weather comes, for instance, those butterflies could turn into rain clouds or other drawings that other community members, and those buildings can have sensors that are communicating with seawalls or other, so that the entire world can become, as Ariane was saying, like a safe space for expression. Now, we don't live in a safe world, right? And that's why these technologies, as Sultan Sharif said, that we can make brave spaces to feel more, to act in ways that make us ultimately feel more safe as a global community, right? Because it would dissolve one, isolation and feelings of powerlessness, but also create an immense empathy field, right? Where we can
Yes.
create opportunities from leadership and directing initiatives by diverse people to creating interfaces that are supplying Wi-Fi, edible foods, and communication connection through education, even like learning to earn experiences for people that are like have low access to technology or are underserved communities. We are really at this incredible moment where it doesn't have to go bad. It doesn't have to be a climate annihilation or a downturn of economy or a spiraling of social injustices. We actually have the tools and the agency to be able to enact change if we work together. And that is going to set us in the step that we need for a global alliance for good, right? Ultimately, that's what this technology is best for doing. Literally, well, there's a trauma specialist, Bessel van der Kolk, and he says that trauma is stored in your body, right? So when existential or real social threats are happening, whether it's from police violence to climate change or displacement because of wars, we are able to actually use world building or to reshape our lives and our brains to let go. So the more we literally collaborate and work together, we're able to create like safe space, brave space, safe space, or sustainable space cities for the rest of humanity on Earth and on the moon, right? Or on Mars, right? We have no boundaries as long as we really use these technologies, and that's our responsibility. That is our responsibility in this generation, to lay those foundations and break the systems that are structurally binding. And I also really see that we're able to close pay gaps so that we can demand that the gap between male-funded or women or diverse-funded initiatives is more equitable. We have to demand this, and if we don't, it's just a loss, and then we're part of the problem. So if not us, who? If not now, when?
Oh, Paige, that's beautiful. And one of the things you said just said that really touched me about basically what we're talking about is how can you really love a person you don't know? Because in the end, it's about love, because love is about connection. And that, and we are so limited in getting to know people that are not with us, maybe in real time and constantly. But what VR can do is provide training wheels for empathy, because now we have what I would put as a label, a Vulcan mind meld. You remember when Spock used to be able to put his hands on the head of another individual and merge minds together? We can now have a whole new level of communication with another person. When, for example, we talked about this yesterday, what if we had children of the world actually make for us their image of heaven? And then we are able individually to go into their heaven, and they tell us about their heaven. We tell them about our heaven. What that does is bring us together in a way that no words or pictures could ever do, because we retain it. We were in that place, and we'll never forget it. We'll never forget that person. And so this whole training of empathy, training how to love and understand, because you can't love a person you don't know, really, because you don't know what you're loving otherwise. And so I believe that we now have, it's interesting, we use the word information. Information. I don't think we understand what that word means. The word information is the process of forming within. Reading a newspaper article doesn't necessarily give you forming within as much as this room, this time right now, this is forming something within us. So this is true information, high bandwidth, connection with the heads and with hearts of people. And you're doing that. You're providing these mechanisms, showing some of the eigenvalues of what can be done in terms of these kinds of methods of connecting and of sharing what's inside of us. In a way, what in the virtual world society, Paige and I talked about this yesterday. We like to think of ourselves as, there's the National Geographic Society. And the National Geographic Society is trying to take understanding of the outside world and bring it inside of us. What we're trying to do in the virtual world society is take what's inside of us out and share that. So thank you for those insights and that's and motivations. Now, there's questions I'm sure are going to be asked about, okay, we now have this new attribute of our technology of our age, artificial intelligence. It's called artificial intelligence. I don't know why they call it artificial, because in the
it's so real, right? It's very real.
And so what we need to do is what are your thoughts about that? Now we have this new tool. It's not new, it's been around for a long time, but it's now been rediscovered again. And what is your take on how that influences especially the heart of an artist and the other directions you think we need to be taking?
Thank you for this question. I'd like to answer it in a multifold way. For myself, I love AI. I use it every day. I recently just finished a class with Ariane, maybe some others in this room. Ariane and I participated in a 6-week course for Mission Impact Academy on using AI for streamlining your flow and learning how to use it for leadership, communication and ways. And I love it. I use AI in some form every single day, whether it's creating a cool looking skybox using Blockade Labs, or writing something that is challenge or like a outline for something in ChatGPT, or creating an image generation for a or writing about a project in Helsinki or this or that, right? So there's no end to my use of AI. But at the same time, I have a tremendous, I'm an artist and a museum professional before I entered into immersive technology. And so through my social feeds, I see a tremendous amount of concern from artist friends who feel as though their livelihoods could be erased from the lack of jobs as artists, musicians, or writers, to actually having their copyright infringed upon by using their art as language learning models or as image learning models. And so I see a lot of like fear and uncertainty, and also polarization of like some artists feel a deep disdain towards images generated from AI, and I think that that's just a lack of education at this time, because if we actually created more opportunities to educate using AI, some of the people who feel nervous or fearful about I think that we can actually create systems of creating more employment, because people would be using more AI to streamline their jobs and not, or their art, or create just like a new tool, right? Like I love new like pens or markers or a new tube of paint, and truly just learning about a new AI tool is just like getting a new tube of paint, right? You can express yourself deeply with it the more you work with it, and kind of gain a relationship with the tool, the more success that you're going to have. And so I think just more education, more like if each one of us reached out or hosted, kind of created, become the bridge for people who feel a deep sense of fear or uncertainty, then I think we're going to dissolve some of that gap from early adapters into a mass adaptation without negative impacts. And I really know that ethics comes along with it. So some policy and ethics to protect artists, creators, and those with intellectual property that they're concerned about.
Wow.
So it's exciting.
It is
can't
indeed.
help
Now,
but being
Paige,
excited. Yes.
What if the world were perfect and you were queen, and you had all these resources, and you wanted to build the next generation of technology that would build upon what we've done already? What would that be? Where would you make the investment?
I would make that investment, well, right here, right in this room, truly, in working together with each one of us as like a coalition, an alliance for good, to create deeply inclusive communities throughout the world together. I recently had the opportunity to join the VR/ARA global ambassadorship headed by Ariane, and it's really an incredible opportunity to create vast wide bridges throughout our world together, right? Imagine a whole community gathering together on a bridge or at a table or in a garden, right? So ultimately, I'd like to work with cities around the world to create like sustainable XR research labs, to create sustainable cities, edible cities, using AI, data, and XR technologies to visualize, create game jams, hackathons with people to create solutions for our largest problems today. I would want to like create programming similar to like a museum programming for education, children, community inclusion in different aspects that were funded and supported in long-term, meaningful ways. And I would want to work with schools, families even within the home to create experiences together that were embedded through immersive experiences that strengthened the family bond. Right, like my brother and I play Beat Saber on Mondays, or like my father, who is retiring as a psychologist. I'm kind of going to work with him to record some of his teachings, right, and keep them in VR, right. So there's ways, like even within the home, if you're a parent of a young child, this is a fantastic way to use like WebXR or immersive headsets to play, learn, and like build together. And we're really building the realities that we deserve.
Well, beautiful. Thanks for that.
Tom, that's beautiful. Tom, we have just enough time for a few questions.
Yes.
We could talk for
turn to
hours,
questions, if that's okay.
We could
We're just
talk for
beginning.
hours.
We're beginning. Okay,
All
let's
right.
open up for questions.
You can unmute or raise your hand and we'll call on you. I believe one of the questions that I thought was coming at you was by Bruce, who had to leave.
Yes.
Was about the impact of the Apple Vision Pro.
Yes.
Thoughts?
What are your thoughts?
Hey, it looks
Paige?
really cool. I'm dying to try one. But I have to say, I love productivity, and I love like bridges towards larger adoption. I think that it's really important to build affordable, accessible headsets. I guess I'm spoiled. I love social VR, and like being in a space like this together is so important to me.
Yes.
I'm fearful. I don't have an Apple Vision Pro. I totally want one because I want to try every kind of headset that exists. But I feel as though I might long for something that we have here right now together already. And that's just this presence, this connection, being together. And I don't know if I could live without that.
Agree.
I can live without certain headsets, but I don't think I could live without what we find here together.
Absolutely. Rob, you have a question?
Yeah. Hey, Paige.
Hi. Good to see you, Rob.
We've spent a lot of time together, and I always love your when you talk about how this type of technology can be open and inclusive. But I also see like the trend at the moment, at least how this is all coming about, seems to be all very corporate controlled, right? Like we have yet to kind of break into something that is really open and private. I mean, even in this space that we're sharing, it's owned by a corporation, right? So, how do we move this forward to where our privacy is protected, that the experiences and stuff are our own, we have agency over the things, and keep out really the corporations from controlling it all?
Well, Rob, thank you so much for this question. It's really a valuable point to discuss. And I am of the mind that, well, multifolded answer. One, there's nothing like, well, decentralization and sovereignty, right? Ultimately, I have an incredible privilege of where I live to even be able to consider myself as an anarchist of authority and structure, right? And so ultimately, one can reject all corporations by decentralizing and working with platforms that integrate on blockchain and other open XR platforms. Now, however, I also feel as though I have just like I have a sense of entitlement to be able to feel like I can be an anarchist. I also have entitlement, I guess, to be able to walk into a corporation and say that there's some responsible people who work at corporations, and by working together inside of XR, we're able to grow empathy and understanding together that can create change of policies. So that Hollywood and history and structural societies show us that what is of, by, for the people is never the priority. But in revolution, we rise up together and we are able to do that. Now, I think that there are times that growth can happen without a revolution that's violent. But we don't have to have that kind of revolution. We can have a revolution of communication, of sharing collaborative tools, of mindful relationship building that is strategic for good. So I think that actually, we're never going to live in a world without corporations or structural institutions. And so to be able to change from small pockets into working in a global coalition, we're able to create a movement that can enact change better. Those are some of my thoughts on that.
Love it.
Oops. That was powerful. Any other questions? Go ahead, just unmute and shout. As soon as we stop, they'll have a million questions for you.
And people can always reach out to me and ask questions anytime. I'm usually on social media or in VR, and you can always hop in over in my world. I don't just hang out in Horizons, but all over the place. I'm engaged to wherever friends are, I'm going to be. So,
Ariane, did you have a last question?
I was just going to ask, excuse me. I was going to ask Paige if what she was most excited about coming next in this space.
Well, I can't hide my excitement. We've been working on a collaboration that was inspired by MetaCenter Global Week. And MetaCenter Global Week, a small group of collaborators started to build a world together and became friends and a little small community. And we submitted this project to be launched in a future moon launch on the IM-2 space shuttle, and so that's something I'm really looking forward to. It's sort of a special opportunity to create our future has no bounds. So those are some things that I'm looking for, and I'm also beginning to do a project in Helsinki, Finland, where we're working on an XR sustainability lab, and Helsinki is an important center for research and innovation.
Mm-hmm. Well, Paige, before we close, why don't you tell us what's happening at this very moment in space?
Well, this very moment is the one is able to watch on YouTube or on
NASA TV.
On NASA TV, thank you. The landing of the IM-1 space there's actually a new word.
It's a lander. Yeah, there is a new word. I can't think of it either. It's not a lander, but it's not kind of a probe. But anyway, it's a test.
Yeah. So I think that's very exciting, and I don't have art or a collaboration or a metaverse on that world, but we created a world that celebrates it, and that will be joining the next mission in the future. But this whole idea that there is no limits, right? That every moment is an event horizon to new worlds, right? We have I was born at the same year, 1969, that people, United States people still first went to the moon. And I think that wonder is in all of us. As we sit here today together, we're able to wonder and feel together. Just when we put our hands on each other, it had the same landing as a spaceship on the moon. Like what our hands are creating, this connection and this hopeful sense for the future. I think every time, thank goodness, I love haptics, but every time you high five or touch somebody in immersive technology, it helps to reinforce that hope and future and community is where it's at.
Indeed.
Okay, and it's called the Odysseus, I think I'm saying that right, Odysseus lander. So it's called the lander. And it hasn't said it landed yet, but I have the live thing sitting here waiting to see it's coming up.
That's correct. And you can learn more about initiatives for art in a payload that is through the Bit Basel and Luna Prize Museum. These initiatives will, in the future, be sort of highlighted along with other incredible virtual world initiatives in the Virtual World Museum.
So be sure to follow Paige, and you'll find out all these wonderful things that she's doing. She is not only is making a profound impact on our community. She has a heart of gold, and you just feel it whenever you're around her, and with her enthusiasm and her caring and her love. And so, Paige, thank you for spending your time with us here. I'm sure this isn't going to be the last time you're sitting in that beautiful chair there. We'll have a lot of other things to do. Paige is helping us in the Virtual World Society and the various projects, and we're grateful for that. I'm sorry that Angelina Dayton wasn't able to be here today. She had a medical procedure she had to do today, but she gives her affection to you, and so she was here in spirit, I'm sure. And thank all of you for coming. Just a few things. We have our next podcast that's you can go online to our website and find out a lot of good things that are going on there with the podcast. lots of incredible people being interviewed. Maxwell was here earlier, Maxwell McGee, and be sure to check that out on our website. And again, in April, as Laurel mentioned, we'll be having our next podcast, and
Fireside.
throughout the rest of the year. Fireside, sorry, next Fireside throughout the year. Thank you again, Laurel. Thank you again, Paige, and everyone who came. We'll be hanging around here for a few minutes after we formally conclude. And so if you'd like to come up and talk to Paige or me or us together, that'd be fine. Thank you again for coming, and hope to see you next time.
Yay, thank you, Evan. We'll see you again in April. And Paige, keep educators in mind for all your projects. We're ready to help pitch in.
Thank you so much. And really thank you to all the community members that make these initiatives possible, from the Virtual World Society, Educators in VR, to the Virtual World Museum led by Julian Reyes, to the XR Women Community, XR Guild, the Polys, the VR ARA, AWE, and the list can go on and on and on about Thrive Seniors. Everywhere I look out, I see community members that are working together to create this better world. And I could not have done any of this without all of us together. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Al. Thank you, Paige. Thank you, Tom.